Welcome, everybody, to the R&R CatCast, a fan-based podcast focusing on Montana State athletics. We're two dudes named Ryan from the state of Washington talking about our dear Montana State. We hope you enjoy it. All right, welcome back, Bobcat fans. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the R&R CatCast. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Foley. He's your host, Ryan Thornburg. We are the Ryans of the R&R, the Montana State affiliate of the Big Sky Podcast Network. And we have a sweet sponsor in Gear Up Sports. Gear Up Sports is a youth sports platform focusing on solving the uniform and apparel headache for coaches. If you're a youth or high school coach and need player packs or uniforms, please contact them at www.gearupwithus.com. And make sure to mention the R&R CatCast. We're here today. We are 9-0, coming off a win on the Inferno. We were both there, excited to talk about it, excited to talk about our experience, and we'll do a little preview of Sac State. We're at home for the first time in about a month, so that's something interesting. The Cats haven't been home. The lovely confines of Bobcat Stadium, so looking forward to that on Saturday. We'll get into it. Thorny, how you doing, buddy?
Doing great, man. That was a fun weekend over in Cheney, seeing you and some old friends of mine. I had a really good time. I saw my cousin. It was a good trip. It was a good road trip, and I'm glad the Cats came out with the win because it would have been a little bit more sour if they hadn't, but made it worth the drive.
You know, I'm pretty sour on Eastern Washington, all things most of the time. I was pleasantly surprised by the interactions we had with their fans this week. They were nothing but nice to us. Multiple Eastern fans inviting us into their tailgates, offering us drinks and food. I was super pleased with our experience, just like moseying around. A little bit like disconnected because they had like lower tailgates and then this long sweeping road to get up to some upper tailgates. I actually had more fun with the Eastern fans than I did with the Montana State fans in the tailgates.
Yeah, that was a fun kind of mixed tailgate we ended up at. A little bit of Cat fans, a little bit of Eagle fans. Good stuff.
Yeah. Thanks for all those who reached out to us. And we got to meet some of our listeners. Got to meet Gary Black and his wife, Kristen, and Logan.
Yeah,
got to meet him
shout
at
out to
tailgate.
Logan. That was his tailgate, or his father's tailgate.
I'm sure there's some people I'm missing, but it was cool connecting with some of our Cat fans and some of the fellow listeners. All right, we'll get into that experience here in a little bit, but let's talk about the show rundown. We'll get into some news. There's not much news. We came out today. I'll just state right here. The depth chart is the same as last week. So there's your news, Cat fans. No injuries, which is also good.
No news is good news.
Something that Coach Vegan mentioned in his presser. So check that off the box. Instead, we'll go run down through the games in the Big Sky because Thorny was traveling back to – where do you live? Somewhere by Seattle. Linden?
Linden. It's way north of Seattle.
There it is. Bellingham, right?
North of Bellingham.
We'll go down through the Big Sky. We were going to record a podcast, but Thorny fell asleep, and then we got up late, and then we went and had a couple of beers, and so it just lost time. So we didn't do the instant reaction show. I know we've been slacking on those. We will get better.
The sleeping was amazing, though. I really enjoyed that nap.
You slept a lot here.
I don't get to sleep, man. I took advantage.
No, you did. So we're going to go down through the Big Sky. We'll talk about Coach Vegan's presser. I did a little bit of research on just dress shirts and ties and formal names for those. And so I have a couple new words that I'm going to sprinkle in the Coach Vegan attire section.
You missed an opportunity to say, I'm going to tie it in.
Ooh. I did miss that. Just like I missed asking Keaton to talk to Coach Vegan about wearing a pocket square. Still can't believe I didn't. Man, opportunity missed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, get him next time. We'll talk about the Eastern game. Yeah, Brian and I both haven't had a chance to rewatch it, and watching it from the field at Eastern is a challenge because the stands are so low, or you're in the end zone, and so your perspective is a little bit skewed. So we'll give our best takes on what happened, just the feelings of that game and what it meant. and we'll preview the Sac State game a little bit at least. We'll talk a little bit about some of their players. What's going on with Sac State? Why are the Stingers down right now? And I think we have like one Golden Coolie question. Thank you, Roger Fisher. And it's been a Monday over here, so we're going to go for it. But first, let's talk about what's in our Golden Coolies.
What's in your Golden Coolie?
What's in your Golden Coolie is brought to you, as always, by Wilbur Ellis. And go see Shay Richter and Company up in Fort Benton for all of your farming and fertilizer needs. Foley, I have the Phillipsburg Razoo, which is a raspberry wheat ale. It's pretty tasty. It's good stuff. I like it.
Where'd you get it?
I think my folks brought it over. I've had like a stash. I mean, I haven't been drinking nearly as much, and I did that sober September. So like, I've had like this stash of Montana beer for like 4 months that I've barely even like cracked into. So I still got quite a couple other beers I haven't even opened yet to debut on the podcast. But yeah, this is good. It's good stuff.
Our good buddy Zach brought us some tidings. I got the Prickly Pear Pale Ale from Lewis and Clark. You drank this early on in the season.
That's one of the ones I wiped out real quick.
It's always one of my favorites, and Zach brought it just for me. So thank you, Zach.
What a guy.
Appreciate that.
What a guy.
Yeah.
Got to see him too at the game. That was fun.
Zach looked like he could play left guard for the Cats. He's really tall, and he's a big dude. I forgot how tall and stout he is. He could open up a hole.
Probably.
All right. Let's go over to the ESPN college scoreboard from last week.
Forgot we're going to do that. All right, you start it.
Let's see. This one was in Flagstaff. Weber State lost to Northern Arizona 27-6. Weber State falls to 3-6 in the Big Sky. Or excuse me, 3-6 overall, 2-3 in the Big Sky. While Northern Arizona is 5-4 and 3-2 in the Big Sky and is receiving votes just outside the top 25. Ty Pennington was back. He went 18 for 21 for 212 yards with 2 touchdowns. So Weber continues to Weber, and Northern Arizona under the tutelage of our old offensive coordinator, and of course I'm going to forget his name right now.
Brian Wright.
Yeah, that's it. They're doing well, man. Northern Arizona's hanging around. Could be that last Big Sky team that finds its way into the playoffs. Buy or sell, Northern Arizona makes the playoffs.
I haven't looked at their schedule, but I'll buy it.
They play Cal Poly, Northern Colorado, and Eastern Washington coming up.
And they got Eastern at home. They could win all 3 of those. They could finish 8-4, and that probably gets them in. So, yeah, I'll buy it. I'm buying it.
Yeah. All right. I'll buy that too.
It's a weird-looking game. 21 points in the first quarter from Northern Arizona of their 27, and then just 12 total points combined the next 3 quarters between the 2 teams.
Yeah, that is weird.
UC Davis at home destroys Northern Colorado 59-7. This says Hastings and Larison combined for 6 touchdowns. UC Davis has got it cooking.
It's not often you see 28 points in a quarter. We've done it once this year. Davis put up 28 points on them in the third quarter.
In the third quarter of all the quarters, too. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the hardest one to put up, a big number. Normally you come out guns blazing or hit your stride in the second, but the third, wow.
They had 309 yards rushing and 313 on passing.
8-1, 5-0 in the Big Sky. UC Davis is for real. For real. I'm going to ask it to you now. Do you think they stand a chance against the Grizzlies, ESPN night game over in Washington Grizzlies Stadium?
I think they stand a pretty good chance.
You think so? I'm giving all that mixture, like that elixir that I just said, about 10 points for the Grizz Stadium, just in itself.
Sure.
At night, ESPN2. It's gonna be humming in Missoula that night.
UC Davis will be ready for it, I think.
Hopefully, that'd be cool, man. I mean, obviously, I want to see the Grizz to lose. If Montana State takes care of business this week against Sac State, and we're playing for at least a share of the Big Sky title next week.
That's crazy, yeah. I mean, the Cats are in the driver's seat for the outright, but yeah, 2 wins guarantees at least a share.
Yeah. Bring me the rings. All right. Let's see what's next. Montana beats lowly Cal Poly 42-7. Montana moves to 7-2 in the Big Sky, 7-2 overall, 4-1 in the Big Sky. This game was a 14-point game going late into the third quarter. It was like 14-0. And then Montana put it on them. They hung 14 points in the third quarter, so they must have scored back-to-back. And then they put 14 more points on in the fourth quarter. Not sure, didn't watch that game. Again, they're rotating quarterbacks over there. I'm not sure what Montana is doing, nor do I really care. I hope they lose every other game for the rest of the year.
It behooves the Grizz to be highly ranked when we play them, but it's not that important to me. I didn't watch anything. I know nothing about this game. 42-7, what do you expect, I guess?
It was odd, though, to see it was only 14-0 with 3 minutes left in the third.
This says Junior Bergen returned a punt, 84 yards for his Big Sky Conference record, 6 career touchdown. So it's probably 14-0, and then finally Bergen returns it, and that ignites everything else. Usually how it kind of rolls over there. They're so dependent on a special teams player. It's weird.
Yeah.
I've never seen a team like quite so like dependent on one player like that. It's like, it's weird.
Well, I don't know. I think Bergen's got to be a senior at this point.
He is.
Yeah.
This is a crazy game, and for the Cats' next opponent, Sac State at home gets boat raced by Portland State, who scored 7, 10, 20, and then 21 points consecutively in the quarters to win 58-38 against Sac State.
Oh, gosh.
Dante Chachere throws for 245 yards and a touchdown, rushes for 165 yards and 4 touchdowns, accounts for 5 total touchdowns and 400 yards of total offense. I mean, Carson Conklin went 31 of 38 for 314 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 pick. And then they lose. So a big offensive slugfest over there in Sacramento, but man, they could not stop Portland State. So I don't know what to think about Sac State. We'll talk about them later, but it's not a good loss at home getting smoked by Portland State, who previously only had 1 win on the whole season.
Portland State comes back after just taking a butt whooping from us and then wins. I have no clue who these guys are. Just up and down.
Yeah, they beat Idaho State. They get smoked by the Cats, and then they smoke the Hornets. That means they've won 2 out of the last 3. Look at that. Surging Portland State. Surging.
But they absolutely just gave up against us. Just like straight up. Did not want to compete. And then they go do that. The week before, Chachere was a 200 guy.
Bruce Barnum's got him believing again.
Week to week, right?
Yeah, week to week.
I don't think I would argue that he doesn't. I think they just play off of emotion anymore.
Sure, yeah. I mean, if you start playing and it goes well, then you can keep playing well. But if you start playing and you start losing, then it just collapses.
Yeah. Not a sign of a mentally tough football team right there. All right, well, that's the Big Sky. It's out of all the years in recent memory, it feels like the Big Sky just is very polarized. Like there's just a lot of bad football going on right now, and just a little bit of good football on the top end.
Yeah, there's really only 4 teams that have been pretty consistently good or at least above average. NAU's trying to sneak themselves into that conversation, but it's been, the Grizz. Even the Grizz were up and down. UC Davis and the Cats are the only 2 real consistent teams that have just consistently shown their top 10 team nationally.
I think Montana State's in a tier by themselves right now as far as just what they've accomplished.
In the Big Sky, yes. Yes, I do.
And then there's a gap, and I would say in the next tier is Idaho, or excuse me, Davis. And then I think there's another gap below that, and then there's a tier that holds Idaho and the Grizzlies.
And NAU?
No, NAU is like trying to get into that tier, but I don't think they're quite
So
there
then
yet.
NAU's in the 4th tier by themselves, and then the 5th tier is literally every single other team.
Yeah. And then there's a chasm, and then there's all those other teams.
And they just like fight to see who sucks the least week to week. Yeah,
Do they really fight to see who sucks the least? I don't know.
those Weber
Like, are
State,
you-
Portland State, Idaho State, Cal Poly, Eastern Washington, Sac State, Northern Colorado. They've all had moments,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
but yeah, we've got 4 teams at the bottom with 1 win.
Were you
But nobody's
expecting
winless.
Weber or Sac to be who they are this year? I wasn't at all.
I think I had Weber going about 500, maybe. But I had Sac State being pretty good. When I saw their schedule, I didn't think they'd be so awful.
Yeah, when Jay Hill departed, I was not thinking Mickey Mental would be the next iteration of him, but I did not see this like version of Weber happening. Not this soon, at least.
No. And they're one of those schools that, like, that momentum, all that progress they made over the last 10, 15 years, like, that can go away in one bad season. It's not like in Montana or Montana State where it's so, the fan bases are so ingrained and the culture is so ingrained, you can weather a losing season and still come back and sell the stadium out and get back on track. Like Weber State, it's like, it can all fall apart so quick, and I'm afraid it's going to fall apart for them. And they may take years to recover from it.
They could. But they could be like NAU, just be kind of, very. Nobody wants to play them. They could beat you at any time. I think that's what, like, for the Big Sky hopefuls, let's just call them that. The Big Sky hopefuls, they need a good coach, maybe a new coach, a coach that fits the identity of that team. You need a quarterback, and maybe a salty defense. Some players, a couple dudes. We're not talking wholesale like you're going to beat Montana State. But guys, to keep it scrappy. Like, I think Idaho State, we talked about this a little bit last week. They fit that model to me. They're just scrappy. They have a fun little coach. Like they're playing the world is against us. I think, if they have a couple more guys, a couple more benefits that go their way, that's who you got to be. If you're not Montana State, Montana, right?
That's right.
Alrighty.
Yep. Well, there's the Big Sky.
All right.
Our top-notch analysis of the Big Sky Conference.
Montana State's already locked its seed in the playoffs.
A seed, maybe.
A seed, yes. Not maybe. It's a done deal. Montana State did not get a seed from here on out. That'd be wild.
Well, we could lose 3 in a row, man.
Completely wild.
I don't know how many top 8 seeds come in with the 3-game losing streak.
I don't know, buddy. All right.
And I've been saying this
Yeah,
for
but how
weeks
many-
and
how many
weeks, like,
teams are gonna
this
have 9
guarantees
wins?
this guarantees this, and like I disagree with you like every time.
No. All right. Let's move on to the presser.
And now, Bobcat fans, it's time for F&F Fashion Watch, brought to you by Foley and Fisher, the only two that seem to really care what Brent Vegan is wearing at his press conference.
Thank you, Russell. Vegan sported a deep navy suit, a white and soft blue graph check shirt, and a bobcat blue and gold modern plaid tie. No pocket square, no baloney. No cream.
No bologna or no cream. Brent Vegan.
No cream
sums him up.
circles.
No ding, or are you only dinging stats? There we go.
There you go. I'll ding it.
Dang it. All right. Well, aside from his fantastic attire, did you listen to the press conference? Anything worth noting?
I did. It was a long one. It was too long. It was like 34 minutes. I did not want to dedicate 34 minutes to listening to coach, but I made it through. No new injuries. I gathered it was been a month since between home games, and I did not notice that, but it's felt like a long time since we've been back at
Was it Idaho?
Bobcat stadiums. Yeah, that was the last time.
Wow.
He said our effort and mindset were good. He talked a little bit about the D, and somebody asked, he's like, well, can you give us a little bit why we were struggling? And coach talked a little bit about, he goes, there's multiple ways you can struggle against the run. Our effort and mindset were good, but we did not fit the run game well. On 2 of those plays, he said we got out leveraged. I think that was talking about Wortham's 72-yard or 76-yard reverse there. But we figured it out. And so my take was, it's not something that we can't overcome. You kept saying at the game, well, we're getting blown off the ball. He said we weren't getting blown off the ball. I choose to accept his opinion on that over yours.
Yeah, whatever.
He said the +1 run game give us a little bit of fits. He did talk a little bit about how, they were scheming up for Visparis, and that was a little bit of it. But the fact that, Daly and company were able to assess it on the fly, essentially in the fourth quarter, by the time fourth quarter came around, had that thing on lockdown. That was pretty good. He said, interestingly enough, and then somebody asked a little bit about sack, so I'm moving into the sack part now. There's no returning defensive starters that played against us last year that are playing or starting for the defense this year.
That's crazy.
That's wild. Yeah, he called that significant. He was effusive about Elijah Tolliver, although he didn't play last game. He's fourth in the Big Sky. Talked a little bit about Conklin. Conklin is their quarterback who has usurped Caden Bennett, their senior. Conklin is a freshman. He has 21 touchdowns in 2,000 yards, but he also has 6 interceptions. So Sac State is prolific at taking away the ball, but they're also giving the ball up right now. And I didn't know this, but you mentioned that Sac leads the Big Sky in sacks, 22.
There you go.
No. And another thing, the last point I would say on the presser, he did concede that last year that maybe the Cats did get a bit ahead of themselves mentally. And that is why this year, whenever you hear anybody talk, today it was Julius Davis and Simeon Woodard, the 1-0 mentality is just reinforced and reinforced over and over and over again. And so, I think that's what I took from Coach Vigen's presser. But pretty vanilla, but some good stuff in there.
Nice. Well, I didn't listen to it. I've consumed hardly any Bobcat content since I left. I watched the highlights today just to kind of see the big plays from the TV angle. But other than that, I'm coming at this kind of like an instant reaction a little bit. I'm not influenced by anything other than my memory from Saturday. So it'll be fun to talk about it and just kind of see how my take is now. And then I'll watch the game maybe this week and realize, oh, that was not at all the takeaway upon a rewatch.
Is that your first game at Eastern?
No, I've gone to the games there before.
Okay. All right.
I want to say it's my third.
Well, the Foley the Foley curse has been lifted.
Yes. Eastern really, the Bobcats actually really battled 2 opponents. As they said on Twitter, they battled the Eagles and they battled Foley's evil curse of actually showing up to a Bobcat game and watching us lose over and over. But you did it. We did it.
I did have to take some walks in order to make it all come together. At one point,
tell them why you take walks. For people who don't know the history of Foley and Bobcat football viewing, give them a little rundown at what you do at home.
Oh yeah. Well, if you ever have the pleasure of watching a game with me, I'm a nervous Nelly. So I start walking. I will take a walk around the block, and what I end up doing is I take my phone in my pocket as I walk, and I tend to just wait for it to buzz in my hand and react to whatever came across my screen. Normally it's you going, "Oh crap," or something negative. And so I'm like, ah. But sometimes Zach will come, and Zach's the positive guy. So you guys are like good cop, bad cop. Zach will be like, "Heck yes!" And he's normally a little bit ahead of the game because he's there live.
Yeah. Does make it challenging sometimes.
So when the going gets like kind of tough, I put on my like boots or shoes or slippers, whatever's closest to me, and I take off and I walk around the block just to get some energy out. And then yeah, so come Saturday, I was third quarter. Eastern marches down the field, scores, and we don't have an answer. And then we go for it on fourth down in the most inexcusable way when we could just run. Gosh, we could just, every Bobcat fan in the stands, just run it between the tackles, get him one. And we do a fake play action. The guy was open. Tommy couldn't see him. Take a 10-yard sack. I went on a walk. I left the stadium. I started walking up the street. I walked around the block through the old tailgate section. And then I came back and I was looping back. And the problem was, Thorny, not the problem, but the little thing that was bothering me is I could still hear everything going on. So like the anxiousness part of it was I could hear that announcer say, "And another Eagles first down." I was like, "Oh my
Earmuffs,
gosh."
la 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 la.
Yeah, I started sweating a little bit. I was like, "All right, pace it off." And if you don't know, when you're walking up the boulevard, you can see the whole field. So I was watching the game, walking back and forth. So it was actually good for me. I feel bad because we were sitting next to Gary Black and Christian Black, and they're probably going, "What the heck is this guy doing?"
And your son.
Oh,
just left your
man.
son with me. Poor kid.
Oh yeah, that was Miles. My son came. I was like, "Well, I hope Thorny got some because I hope my wife doesn't listen to this part because I totally just abandoned my son. Miles.
I'm a dad. I
like
had
going
you covered,
like,
man. Don't you worry about that.
"Yeah, what the heck is Miles doing now?" Or what the heck is Dad doing? I came back. And I came back into the stadium. I was like, "Thorny, I'm looping back," and you're like, "Okay." And then when I got there, you go, "No, go away. We need you to keep walking because we just scored at that point." And you go, "You got to go back out, do whatever you just did again. Come back when there's 14 more or 14 points."
Yeah, you weren't allowed back until there's a 2-touchdown lead. That was the agreed upon rule by me and those surrounding me.
So I said, all right, I'm gonna go walk again.
You just like turned around instantly without even like a any sort of objection. It's like, yep.
And that's pretty much the whole fourth quarter was I spent walking the circumference of the whole Eastern facility, tailgates and all, and listening to it. So I had to go back and rewatch the fourth quarter when I got home. But yeah, the fully walkabout lifted the curse. We did it.
It's funny. I didn't think you'd actually do it. I was just kind of half joking, like, "Yeah, get out of here." And then you just like turn around and left. I'm like, "Oh man, now I feel bad." But hey, it worked. So I think everyone's happy with the outcome there.
It was awesome. And it was really cool to see the resolve of the Bobcats. And we'll get into that. We probably should talk about the stats before we get into too much more of the game. So let's do that.
Do you want to just skip the poll, or maybe just let's just skip the poll. Who cares?
Well,
Cats are still number 2.
Cats are still number 2. I forgot about the poll, right? Let's see. FCS, there it is. So North Dakota State's number 1. They got 43 first place votes. Montana State got 13. South Dakota State's number 3. UC Davis is number 4. South Dakota number 5. Number 6 is Southern Missouri. Number 7 is Montana. They squeaked up from number 8. UIW is number 8. Is that incarnate word?
Yeah.
UIW?
Yep. The bird is the word.
Idaho is up from number 10 to number 9. And then that is it. as far as Big Sky teams in the top 25. All right, let's get into the stats.
All right. Well, let me pull up the thing. The stats brought to you by Pronghorn Wealth. If you haven't looked at the stats on your company's 401k, oh man, I had something queued up here. Now I'm screwing it all up. I was going to change it around. All right. Oh yeah, that's what it was. If you haven't looked at the stats on your company's 401k since Rob Ash was selling hot tubs, reach out to Kendall at Pronghorn Wealth to benchmark your current plan fees at pronghornwealth.com. There it is. I changed it up. I thought that'd be kind of funny. If you know, you know about the Rob Ash hot tub.
I was looking at my 401k today.
Nice.
How's Pronghorn Wealth? But yeah, a little bit different. But yeah, it's good stuff.
All right, let's get into the stats. All right, the Bobcats come out ahead in Cheney 42-28 to the tune of 22 first downs, 7 of 12 on third down, and 0 for 1 on fourth down, which we will talk about because it was a big time fourth down. I believe I texted you if that happened. That was the turning point. I think that's what I texted you. Like,
full on Eeyore on me.
I was going like, oh no, this is the tipping point. Eagles 18 first downs, 10 of 17 on third down, and 1 for 3 on fourth down. The Cats roll up nearly 500 of yards of total offense, 497, 181 through the air, and 316 on the ground. The Eagles 393 yards of total offense, 168 through the air, and 225 on the ground, 39 rushing attempts for 5.8 yards per carry. The Eagles had it going on the ground against the Cats all day. 22 of 30 through the air for the Eagles for 5.61 yards per pass and 1 interception, where the Cats were 13 of 20 for 9.1 yards per pass and also 1 interception. The Cats ran the ball 43 times for 7.3 yards per carry. No complaints there. Above 7, that's ridiculous. Penalties continued to kind of bite the Cats. 5 penalties for 30 yards. At least they were of the smaller variety this time instead of like 5 for 70. But Eagles, just 3 penalties for 25 yards. And each team had the 1 interception I already mentioned. But the Eagles also lost a fumble on a kickoff return, which was a big play in the game because that was basically the Cats scored a touchdown, kicked the ball off, force a turnover, and then score, I think, almost on the very next play for a 14-point swing real fast. Cats do win the time of possession, 32 minutes and 4 seconds to 27 minutes and 56 seconds for Eastern Washington.
I was in the porta potty when we forced that fumble because we were changing seats, and I was like, "Oh, I got to use the restroom real quick."
I missed it too.
And give it to Bobcat fans because they filled up the right side of that end zone, and that's where we were at. And we wanted to move over on the sideline so we could have a better view. And I was like, the porta potties were right underneath all those Bobcat fans, so it was a loud eruption inside that honey bucket. Anyways, it wasn't me.
Honey bucket.
Let's see. Montana State had to punt 2 times this game for 88 yards. Eastern punted 3 times for 128. In the red zone, we were 4 for 4, and they were 3 for 3. Some personal stats. Tommy was 13 for 20, 181 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had his first interception of the year. He ran the ball 6 for 125. Had that 76-yard answer to break the stalemate of 28-28. That was the only time when the prediction thread was down to 50% of if we would win or not. Scottree touched the ball 21 times. He had 110 yards, 2 touchdowns. Adam Jones had 10 touches for 61, along with 20. Julius Davis only had 5 touches, so that was under 10 like we assumed he would, and for 21 yards. Ty McCullough had 2 catches, 68-yard, one of them being a streaking 61-yard touchdown. And thank you, Ty McCullough, for not screwing that one up. You needed a big play. I am going to call you out on that. And I'm happy you came through for us, buddy. Rohan Jones, 3 catches for 34 yards. Taco, 3 for 30. Ryan King, 1 for 27. Rylan Schlepp, 1 for 8. Ryan Lonergan, 1 for 5. Adam Jones, 1 for 5. Laniata, Junior Alexander, 1 for 4. If you just counted my little spat right there, that's 8 different pass catchers in this game. Drew Polidor had an interception, 4 total tackles, 4 solo. Neil Daly led all tacklers, 3 solo, 10 total. Paul Brott had 4 solo, 8 total, and 1 forced fumble. Mikhail Riley had 6 total, 2 tackles for a loss and a sack. Zach Black had a half tackle for a loss. Miles Handstead was 6 for 6 and 4 points after. He is number 2 or 3 in the Big Sky right now with like 48 out of 49. And I feel bad for him because the number 1 to number 2, they're only like 20 some touchdowns, 30 some touchdowns. So he has like almost 15 more attempts than the next guy. He's killing it lately. Good for him. Now a little, let's see, Eastern guys. Jared Taylor, their quarterback, 20 for 27, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Your Big Sky leading receiver, Efton Chisholm III, only 9 catches. No, only 9 catches.
Only 9 catches? What do you mean?
Yeah, 9 catches, but only for 78 yards.
Okay, that's better.
That's something that was impressive. He did have a touchdown. And Eastern also had 8 different pass catchers. I thought that was interesting. I guess one more stat would be Hall. Brendan Hall had 4 touchbacks, and he kicked off 7 times for 448 yards. So there was 3 times he did not reach the end zone.
Dang. A lot to unpack there.
Can't believe we had 8 different pass catchers. That stood out to me.
Yeah.
Spread the ball around.
I didn't feel like the passing game was that strong.
No, and I didn't feel like Tyler Walker called a good game. I would say, I would echo Vim's thoughts on this, where he said this was Tyler Walker's worst game.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, this was kind of a Tommy goes 125 yards on 6 carries to win the football game kind of game. It's like without that, I don't know where the Cats would have been. Obviously, that's a big part of the Cats' offense, and you can go on that almost any time. So it's not like it's like this fluky thing that happened or anything, but it was like we kind of needed it because nothing else was working that great. Yeah, but
Montana State doubles down with Tommy in the run game, and they give him 10 to 12 touches. We in that game really, really good. I mean, really easily.
Sure.
I think this game was hinged on when we didn't convert that 4th down. If we convert that 4th down and then go down and score, and it's 35-21, this game's over. This game's over.
Did they go score a touchdown right after that and tie it up?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They went back-to-back touchdowns. They scored 14 unanswered points coming out of halftime.
Yeah. I mean, you're feeling pretty decent at halftime, 28-14. We're giving up more yards and touch points than we're used to seeing, but still a 2-touchdown lead. It's like, okay. But, yeah, that thing's kind of got a little close for comfort there. Give up 14 points and then defense buckled down, and we scored 14 straight points to close it out and even overcame Tommy Malott's first interception of the season. I think the defense forced a 3-and-out right after that to get the ball back. So
Yeah.
it was a really good series of events there because, I mean, Tommy Malott was going to throw an interception. It was going to happen. He's a quarterback. They throw interceptions. And we responded like the best way we could have. And that was good to see.
It was. It just felt like the offense missed some opportunities to just hammer the ball. We talked about the 4th down play. There's a couple of times where we're having just good chunk plays, and I thought we could have took their soul, and it just didn't feel like that was in the cards for the day. Last week we talked about how I didn't want us to get in a shootout. It felt like, in a way, this kind of was a shootout, although the stats don't bear it. I mean, if you just were a passerby and looked at the score and you're like, oh, Montana State took care of business, 42-28. It felt a lot closer than 42-28. I think, though, buy or sell Thorny, because I'm going to buy this. I think this was good for us, better than a blowout.
I mean, I can see the positives of that line of thinking. We did need to be tested. This is always a hard place to play. Eastern is only 2-6 coming into this, but they weren't getting like trounced by everybody. There's been much worse iterations of Eastern Washington football than this, I feel, in the last few years. But I think overall, yeah, probably was good to get tested. I wish it would have been tested by a better football team and not a 2-6 team. Like I said, even though they're not a terrible 2-6 team, they're still 2-6. They're losing football games, so I feel like the test, I would have been more comfortable if this is like if this was the final in UC Davis. I'd be pretty happy. Eastern Washington, like, not quite as happy, but it was good to get tested.
I'm going to read a little bit of Tomcat, his post on Bobcat Nation. He always comes up with these crafty stats and statements. He says, I'm trying to think of other games where teams allowed 28 points and 328 yards in 47 plays in less than 3 quarters, then allowing 0 points and 65 yards on 22 plays in the final quarter. Bobcats put the clamps down, bro.
They figured it out. It took some time.
To me, that signifies a different team, a different spot than where we were in years before, including last year. Old Bobcat teams, I think we talked about this later on that night, would have lost this game.
So if I go back to my preseason episode, I did not have Eastern doing very well, but I had them beating the Bobcats. That was the only loss I penciled in on that, because to me, just looking at the schedule, like, I don't think Eastern's going to be that good this year, but that seemed like the trip-up game to me. And it kind of almost played out that way, so I was glad I wasn't prophetic in that way, but I had penciled this as a hard game for some reason, and it turned out to be that game, so... But yes, the way the team came together and rallied and kind of clamped down and responded after Tommy threw the interception and the defense came out. In the paper, they just talked about, hey, nobody hung their heads down. Like, all right, we got you, man. Like, we'll get this. Don't worry. Don't you worry. It was good. It was good.
One of the things I really enjoyed seeing in the game was the sideline energy from the Cats. Last year in the KB Dome, no mistake, man. There was some funky stuff going on the sidelines. Coaches berating players, players berating players. It just did not look like a cohesive brotherhood like they always talk about. They always say, that's my brother, that's my brother. Well, sometimes brothers fight, but the mojo on the sidelines was not of a championship caliber team. Well, I think it was maybe late in the second quarter or early in the third quarter or something. And again, I was sitting next to Zach Black's parents, and Zach, I saw him. The defense was about to go back on the field, and I saw something. I couldn't tell what I was seeing. Like, I couldn't tell you what he was saying, but he was saying in no certain terms, like, boys, this ain't happening on this watch. Like, it ain't going down like this. And his fire was consuming me. I'm like, man, I haven't seen that. Like, when you have players who are saying this stops now, and it stops because of us, we're going to go take care of this business. No excuses. There's no hope. We're just going to get it done. And I could tell just the guys around them that you could see that their helmets just bobbing, like, yeah. And they went out and they got a 3-and-out. And you need guys like that. You need a team like that. And I think this team has that. And that's special. When you have a player-run program and leadership comes from the players, not the coaches, like that, you can't be stopped.
Absolutely. You do love to see it. But I'm going to shift this into the negative a little bit here. And
Shocker.
What's that?
Shocker.
Well, it can't all be sunshine and rainbows, because that was not a great performance, no matter how you slice it. And I just happen to wonder, how big of an impact is losing Blake Schmidt and Danny Yu?
I would say not as much for Blake Schmidt, because I think Paul Brott has been equally effective. And that's not a slight to Blake Schmidt. I just think that's a props to Paul Brott. Danny Yu has been a major loss. And I was remiss to say it wouldn't be a couple weeks ago. I've always kind of dogged on Danny Yu a little bit.
He's a leader out there. Whatever you want to say about his playmaking abilities, he was a leader.
And he knew where to be, too.
What's that?
Yeah, he was smart.
Yeah.
He was smart and crafty. Like you said, he was playing fast because he was in the right spots. Neil Daly has had an atrocious quarter here and there where you're like, oh, he has flashes.
Yeah, he had a little bit of a rough go in Cheney.
Yeah.
for spots.
And then you have the yeah. So the learning curve has to be steep for those guys. Danny Yu unquestionably missed.
But we have time to figure out how to play football without Danny Yu.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a good learning experience for everybody. And I think I feel better talking through this with you. I was pretty down on the defense coming out of Cheney.
Yeah, I don't think our defense is broken. I know you were like kind of joking, you're like, buy or sell defense is broken. No, it's not.
That was mostly a joke,
not.
but
it's not.
I was concerned.
I know, but if you think about it, man, it's the whole angle. This is the angle I'm taking. Is they had schemed up for Vesperis, and then we were put into a position where it was like, nope. Now we're playing with the plus run quarterback, and they never really beat us over the top. Think about that. They had 8 pass catchers, but Efton Chisholm had 9 catches for 78 yards. Are you kidding? Like, we kept that guy in check. We'll give him the 2-3 yards, 5 yards a catch. But he had, I think I can remember 1 or 2 catches where like, dang, he just moved the chains on that. But nothing huge. They tried to set up the screen game a ton.
They did. They absolutely did.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, we found a way to win, and that's the most important part. Eastern's a tough place to play, no matter how you slice it. It was a funky day too, man. We had everything between a steady 20-mile-an-hour wind. We had grapple. We had rain. We had sunshine. It was all of it. So it was just a weird day.
What do you think of the offensive line performance in this game?
Hard to say. I think we missed a couple things. I know we missed one time when Tommy got touched or sacked or something. On the sack on the 4th down play, Coach Vegan said that pressure was designed to come that way, and they were leaking out. I couldn't see it because of the field level. The tight end, I think it was Lonergan. I just felt like we could have just ran the ball down their throats, to be honest with you.
It looked like it was setting up a pass out in the flat, but it was covered, and that's why Tommy didn't throw the ball, and then it just went, south real fast.
Yeah. Well, what's your thoughts on the offensive line?
I don't know. It seemed like Eastern had more tackles for loss or tackles at the line of scrimmage than I've seen anybody else do against the Cats, and it was I was trying to figure out why. And it didn't seem like the offensive line was getting the big push like we have been. They did open some big holes up here and there, but I don't know. Overall, I don't know. I've been honing in on the physicality of the lines in comparing them to like the Dakotas, and how we played against Eastern kind of confirmed to me maybe we're not elite on the lines physically. I don't know. It could be one game. It could be the game plan. There's a whole bunch more to it than just that. But it's like we weren't dominating physically against a team that like Eastern and I were totally expecting us to be able to do that pretty easily. And of course, we had 316 yards on the ground and like 7.3 yards per carry. So it's easy to, but a lot of that was Tommy Watt keeping the ball and running outside. Like when we tried to run between the tackles, it didn't seem like it was going real well.
Yeah, I can hear you. Well, just keep watching it. If it's a pattern.
Yeah.
If that happens this week, if it happens at Davis, but we're getting to the point now in the end of the season where all these games matter so much, and I think teams are just raising their level. No doubt, Eastern was ready for us. They wanted it. They thought they could come in, and anytime you get the number 2 team to come in your stadium with a history of playing really close games or losing really close games. And we have won the last 4 against them. And that's something that in the last 10 years before that, you'd be lucky to find a win, maybe 2. So, no, man, there's history on that field between those teams, and they know it. They could feel it too. Those coaches were talking about it. They know when Montana State comes to town, they got a game on their hand.
No, I mean, we got the targets on our back. We're getting everybody's best shot.
100%.
Teams are going to do things that they haven't done all year against the Cats because I always kind of hate this cliche saying, but, it's the Super Bowl, right? Like, you're going to give your best shot when your season's already over, like Eastern's is. They're not going to the playoffs. They're going to do everything they can to win this one game. It's the biggest game they're going to have,
Let's bebop over to, I think, one of our only Golden Coolies from Roger Fisher.
Bebop.
Thank you, Roger, for starting the Golden Coolie thread today. He states, Portland State had an explosive offense and the Cats shut it down. With the same defensive players, they had more difficulty against another explosive offense in Eastern Washington. What do you attribute the difference to?
I just think a lot of it was Kiko Vesperis not playing.
Yeah, I think that's where my eyes are at too. Simple as that, man.
You'd like to think that you could adjust faster and that we were good enough defense that it didn't matter, but it's a big part of it for sure.
That, and I also think Eastern utilized the short pass game, and I feel like the short pass game is always something Montana State struggles with.
Yeah, that reverse killed me, though.
Didn't you say there's a hold on that? I feel like every Bob.
That's what Bobcat Nation is saying. That's what people are saying. But I kind of rewatched that play briefly on the highlights, and I'm not sure. I think it was O'Reilly may have been held. I'm not sure he makes the play anyway, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, coach said we were out leveraged.
Yeah, they got around the edge. They fooled everybody. And then they just ran untouched down the sideline. You just haven't seen a lot of that stuff against the Cats.
Nope.
We were just out of position a lot in this game. And Vegan, he said that as much. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. It's a road win. It's a 2-touchdown road win against a team that was given everything they had and a tough place to play that they don't lose a lot at home, or at least historically haven't. So overall, I don't feel too bad coming out of it, but there's definitely some potential concerns that I'm going to just kind of keep an eye on. We'll see if anything, like you said, if anything continues into Sac State, then maybe we start to worry.
Yeah. I'm feeling better. I felt better about it on Sunday. I felt better about it on Monday. So I'm good.
Wonder how our instant reaction would have gone on Saturday if I hadn't fallen asleep.
Yeah. It would have been a spicy episode on Saturday.
Maybe. I was several beers deep, so who knows what would have happened.
Anything you want to talk about on Sac State?
You know what? Not really. It's weird. Sac State's had kind of a weird year. I watched him a little bit against San Jose State, and they looked pretty good, and Caden Bennett looked pretty good, and I think he went out injured. I think that's why Conklin went in. And then it's been mostly Conklin since then.
Yeah.
And he's had some really good games. They beat Nichols 34-7. They beat Texas A&M 34-0. So they had the 2 FBS games. They started at San Jose State and at Fresno State, lost them both in, relatively competitive fashion. Nothing too crazy. Then they come home and smoke their two first FCS opponents. They're like, all right, Sac's still good, right? They lost their FBS games. That's fine. But then they lost to NAU at NAU. Then they lost to Eastern Washington at home. That was a bad loss, 35-28. And they beat Weber. It's crazy. They beat Weber 51-48 in double overtime. And then Weber just struggled to score 6 points against NAU. And then Weber scored, 6 against Northern Colorado when they lost to them? Maybe 10. It was a bad game. So Weber State is putting up points against the Grizz and Sac State, and then they can't score anything against Northern Colorado and NAU. But anyway, Sac follows up that win by losing in overtime to Idaho State. I didn't realize they had back-to-back overtime games.
Yeah.
One of them being double, so they had 3 overtime periods in a span of 2 games. So that was a tough one at Idaho State, and then, they get kind of wheels must have fallen off at home against Portland State. Some of these are at home, too. That's the crazy part. They have a lot of road games. Holy cow! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they have 5 home games and 7 road games. It's not fun.
Now they're coming to Bobcat Stadium.
Yeah. So they went on the road against Idaho State, lost in overtime, back home against Portland State, got smoked, and now they got to go to Bozeman. I just can't see Sac State putting up a huge fight in Bozeman. I
don't
be
think
wrong.
Montana State wants any message out there in the world that says they're not elite, and I think they're going to take a moment to lay the wood.
I think you're correct.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look up Bozeman's temperature for Saturday too, because you get those Southern California.
It is a noon game though, or a 1 o'clock, I guess, in Bozeman.
Yeah, it looks like it's that classic 49 degrees, partly cloudy. You're going to get the wind whipping through the stadium. Ain't going to want to be out there.
So Conklin is 184 of 296 for 2,023 yards, 62.2% completion percentage, 6.8 yards per pass, 21 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's been sacked 7 times with a rating of 138.9. I think you're going to
see our defense come out and whip some butt is what I think is going to happen.
So I think Sac, if Tao Tolliver's not playing, Sac's going to get smoked. And that's Elijah Tao Tolliver, their running back, if you don't know. Again, I tend to forget that not everyone follows the Big Sky as closely as everyone else. So just say Tao Tolliver. People are like, who the heck is that? Their running back who's really physical. He's a very tough running back. He's a big kid. They have him at 6'1", 204. But yeah, if he's healthy, like, I don't know. The second move the ball a little bit, but I can see that just the wheels falling off completely for Sac, no matter who's playing.
I just don't think they'll be able to keep up with us offensively, even if they were to score some points. So,
and the Cats haven't been in Bozeman for a month, like you said, so the crowd's going to be ready. The boys will be just primed to be back home.
Mm-hmm.
It's you don't want to play anybody. You don't want to play in Bozeman. Nobody wants to play in Bozeman right now. Nobody.
You do because you want to experience it, but yeah, you're going to get your butts whooped.
It feels different this year. We were talking to Zach a little bit about that, and he's like, just even 2 years ago, how we were asking him like what the Idaho game was like, and he's like, you don't even know, man. It's like even 2 years ago, it wasn't like this, and that's just good to hear. It's good to hear that the home field advantage is like really just keeps ramping up. Bobcat Nation ramping it up in Bozeman, in Bobcat Stadium. Wish I could be there. Instead, we just settled for going to Cheney. Yeehaw. But
I just think this is just leading to that showdown over at Davis, which is going to be a top 3, number 2, number 4, or excuse me, number 2, number 4. Yeah, number 2, number 4 going at it, barring any catastrophe this week for us. Actually, I'm not
Davis
sure.
Plays Davis the Grizz, right?
Yeah, Davis plays the Grizz. I think the Grizz actually probably win that game. They're just made for those type of games. At least Bobby Howe gets them up for those games. I really hope Davis takes it to him, though.
Davis could finish 8-4, losing 3 in a row. We talked about this last week, I think.
I really want them to win, and then us to beat them, and then we would have sole possession of the.
Yeah. And then they got to beat Sac State, so they finish like 9-2 or 10-2, I guess it would be. Mm-hmm. So our win looks really good.
Come on, Aggies. I'm going to be rooting for you like none other. All right, Thorny. I'm done. You good?
I think I'm good, man. Yeah, it was weird. It was one of the first games I feel like we actually had a lot of stuff to say. We've been caught all these games we've been talking about, like third quarter starters have been out. It's like it's just like they're not real fun to talk about when you smoke Northern Colorado and Morehead State, and this one had a lot to talk about. Plenty to chew on as we head into the next game anyway. But
it was good.
Thanks everyone for listening, finding us here. Thanks everyone for just coming along for this ride. It's still, even 6 years later, whatever it's been, I just really appreciate people listening to this podcast. It still kind of blows my mind sometimes. We're just two dudes who just sit there and talk about the Bobcats like we would if we weren't doing a podcast. It's like a phone call between us. You can always find us on Twitter, RRCatcast. You can find us on the web, rrcatcast.com. You can find us on Bobcat Nation. I am Celtic Cat. He is Common Cat. Hey, Common Cat, let's get out of here. Let's go, Cats.
Go Cats.
Go, Cats.